Good day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show, second take. This is what I believe is going to be one of the last three of these Friday shows we're doing. This was a special we're doing throughout the election period. When we started it, we didn't know exactly when the election was going to be called, so it covered a few months. And now we're coming towards the close of that, but we got a few more Fridays together. And hey, if somebody's looking to sponsor future Friday shows, send me a note. Let's see if we can set something up. Otherwise, we're going to do a few of these and then back to just the Wednesday shows for me. But the Western Standard still got lots and lots of stuff on the cooker and being produced. So today we've got, we got Roy Byer who's going to come on. Something new in Alberta. It's been kind of overshadowed with all the federal politics and everything, but we do have a party system now in municipal politics. And the first one out of the gates was this A Better Calgary party. And the spokesperson, I guess, or I believe he's the CEO of it. I'm not quite sure. I'll clarify that with Roy. Is Roy Byer, and they're starting to get ready for this fall's municipal elections. How's it going to look? How's this going to work? We'll address those issues like vote splits and things like that. And then Nadine Ness is going to come on, and she's with United Grassroots in Saskatchewan, where they've got very similar issues. Actually, the independent support in Saskatchewan is as strong as Alberta, and she's been lobbying to get at least referenda legislation similar to Alberta's on the go, and it's turned into a bit of a political ping pong ball over there. The NDP are demanding Scott Moe denouncer and all the usual fun and games going on. So as per the title of the show, the countdown has begun for an Alberta referendum. We're going to have one. It's pretty much assured now. An independence referendum is coming to Alberta. This will be the first independence referendum held in Canada outside of Quebec in Canadian history. Where it's going to be within a year from now, like the timeline has started. Premier Smith has made it clear she's going to put it in the hands of Albertans to petition. She's made the bar achievable, and there's surely enough support by the looks of it to have that invoked. How much support will be built by 2026? It's hard to say, but this is going to be an issue now for at least a year. It's not going to go away. When you have a long timeline to a referendum, what you really got is a long campaign period. People are going to be pushing and organizing and doing what they will on either side of that issue. It's going to be pretty heated. On the federal front, we're seeing it back and forth. Smith put a bunch of demands to Prime Minister Mark Carney, which we know most of them he's not going to bend to, but maybe he'll throw a few and it might cool some things down. We'll see. But we got quite a push and pull game of regional interests going on across the country in response to the last election. I think it's in response to 10 years of bad government. But now when we see that no matter how bad the government got, Central Canada is just not willing to change it, a lot of Western Canadians are reevaluating whether they really want to be a part of this agreement or not anymore. So we're in for very interesting times, to say the least, and history-making times. Either way, let's see what else is going on in these times and check in with our news editor, Dave Naylor. How's it going, Dave?
It's going well, Cory. How are you? Happy Friday.
Yeah, thanks.
Another week has come and is finally going.
Yeah, well, and we're into that spring weather. I'm looking forward to weekends more now because I can perhaps get out and enjoy things a little more rather than, weekends just meant sitting in the dark in the house watching Netflix.
Well, don't forget, we still got one more major snowstorm to come.
It should be for the
May long weekend, as always. So, I don't know why people continue to go camping that weekend when they know it's going to be bad weather.
Just again, it's tradition, right? It depends on the people. If you go with the whole family and kids and you're in for that misery and mud and everything, you're in for an awful time, and they do it every year. But when I was young and drinking and so on, it didn't matter. If you just get a half-assed tent and a few friends and enough booze and a campfire, you could endure it still.
Yeah, I suppose. We're all too old for that now.
Oh, yeah.
Or you and I, anyway. Well done. So, another interesting week in the news, I guess. Yeah. Started with the big tete-a-tete with Prime Minister Carney and President Trump at the White House. And if you know what, one of the things that struck me was how short Mark Carney was. Not to be petty, but he's only like 5'7", and Trump towers over him, and in the first handshake and to the the thumbs up and all that sort of stuff. So Trump was his usual self. He insulted Trudeau and viciously assaulted Chrystia Freeland, and Carney just stood there and took it. Didn't rise to their defense, and Carney made it clear Canada is not for sale. Some places aren't for sale, like the White House and Buckingham Palace. And Trump said, never say never. So and then they went and had lunch and went behind closed doors, and then who knows what happened.
Yeah, I mean, a little credit where due, I guess. I'm not a Carney fan, and won't be, but I think he did as well as anybody can when you're stepping in with somebody like Trump. I mean, you just don't even know what you're in for in that room, and the best you can hope for is that it wasn't a circus.
Yeah, he wasn't Zelensky.
Yes.
So he's probably wiping his brow. But I think it was a bit of, Canada, U.S., best friends, all that sort of stuff. Interestingly enough, a couple of days later, Trump announces his first trade deal is with Great Britain. Kind of a little snub, isn't it? You think you'd want to get your biggest trading partner and get them figured out before you figure out the Brits and the Chinese.
I don't know. I mean, it's probably just wants to make Carney sweat a little more. I mean, part of it too, though, is it takes a negotiation. And things were in flux. We didn't have a established prime minister until only a couple of weeks ago. It could have been one of two people. Again, I don't know how forward-thinking President Trump is, but we get some of the reality. I mean, his bluster, everything else. It was interesting. They went behind closed doors. Trump likes doing those public meetings. I don't think a lot gets accomplished because it's just all Trump talking. But maybe behind closed doors, I can hope he's a little more nuanced.
And the big news next week is going to be Carney's cabinet. Who's in, who's out? Do you think he'll have the audacity to put Guilbeault back in environment?
Yes. Well, I don't know what environment. I think he's going to keep him in cabinet, but
I think he's a Montreal lieutenant, Quebec lieutenant, so he'll be in cabinet.
So I don't think he'd throw him in environment. I mean, he's got a heck of a regional explosion going on right now. Throwing more gas on the fire by putting Guilbeault in environment, I don't know if it would be.
Freeland is finance minister.
Possibly.
They're family friends.
Trudeau, though. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So that'll be the thing to keep an eye on next week. You mentioned independence, and obviously that was high up in the news all week. Mark Carney sort of dismissed it and said, "Yeah, I'm not going to worry about it." But after a first minister's call this week, Doug Ford surprisingly came out and said, "Look, it's time to show some love to Alberta and Saskatchewan." And he said, over the last decade of the Trudeau government, we've been screwed, and now it's time. Now it's time to sort of righten the balance. And Carney called a Western Premiers Conference. So early in June, they're going to all meet in beautiful downtown Saskatoon. For a chinwag. So, I mean,
that's an interesting choice too. Like they're being strategic.
Yeah,
I got to give them a little credit there. If you want to cool things down, host it out here. Don't hold it out in St. John and say we're going to address Western alienation. Go to the heart of it. And
so he's, little things. And keep in mind, Danielle Smith said she was cautiously optimistic after her first talk with him. So we'll soon find out, right? It's not going to take years. It's going to take months, if that, before we figure out whether Carney's a man of his word or just another liberal.
Well, I'm certain he's just another liberal. We'll just see how well he can cloak it for a while. I mean, but if he can calm down the prairie fires, I'm trying to light them as hard as I can with what I do. But
Premier Smith was interviewed by CTV yesterday, I believe it was, and she says one of the best things about holding an independence referendum is it eliminates the need for an independence party in the province. So you don't need a Parti Québécois, coming up upon your doorstep. So, I mean, do you see an independence party forming, or is it they're just going to be too busy trying to get signatures?
I guess I could see this quelling a bit of that because it can give the people who want to pursue independence something else to focus on rather than meddling with. I don't think there was ever a threat from an independence party, though. I mean, the support's going up, but I mean, again, look, we had 5 of them in the last election. They couldn't break 1%. The best they could do is maybe, unify a bit and get 2 or 3% in an election that might be 3 years from now. The interesting thing was that Angus Reid polling, though, that showed among UCP supporters, support for independence is as high as 65%.
Wow.
So she's has to watch that flank. She's in a tough spot. Yeah,
and it's going to get tougher budget-wise, Cory. With or Sean Polzer did a story this week that with the terrible oil prices right now, that could cost Alberta up to $5 to $7 billion, and that's money that they're going to have to find somewhere. Or they could do the Trudeau thing and just print off money to cover it, but. It's the finances are looking pretty grim for the next little while.
Well, and part of that is that the UCP hasn't conduct themselves like fiscal conservatives.
No.
I mean, they won't cut spending.
No.
So they maybe it's gonna
spend more than the NDP, for goodness sakes.
Yeah. And so I think some Albertans should be holding them to a little account on that one too. Hey guys, that's enough.
Yep, agreed. I mean, look, unemployment numbers out today, 6.9, I believe it is. We're headed for a financial cliff here pretty soon, sooner than later. And the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklin kind of warned that yesterday in his own sort of banker words that better strap in. Things could get ugly.
Yeah, well, maybe Premier Smith could put her plans for high-speed choo-choo train on the shelf.
Yes.
And
one thing I did not have on my bingo card this week, a Pope from Chicago.
oh yes.
Wow, Pope Leo the 14th. And a great headline in the Chicago paper today, Da Pope,
Nice.
as opposed to Da Bears.
Yeah.
So it's Da Pope. So that'll be my headline every time he's mentioned in the story.
There we go.
Da Pope says this, Da Pope says that.
I believe that is the very first American Pope.
Yep, very first one. Didn't speak any English yesterday in his sort of welcoming address. So
Expected it would be all Latin and
it's all Latin and Italian stuff, but apparently he does speak English, being from Chicago.
I would imagine, yeah.
But he is a priest in Peru. Peru's his home base, so he's got dual citizenship between Peru and the United States. But hey, it's going to be interesting. Hey, you got an American Pope, you got Crazy Donald. When those two get together, it'll be a good laugh.
Yeah, interesting times. Well, congrats to the Catholics, I guess. And
Yeah,
having a new guy at the front, and we'll see how he conducts himself in the next few years.
wish him luck.
Right on. Okay, well, thanks. I'll let you get back to tidying things up so you can escape for the weekend. And,
Yes, I look forward to it. You're going up to the big quilt show in Red Deer. That'll be fun for you.
yes, I'm
You
back
and all
there-
those women.
back there tomorrow. I am the hired help to help set up and break down the. I was laughing at that yesterday. I had the lanyard with this quilt show and Cory Morgan on. Just as we know, we go to so many of those things. We get at home dozens and dozens of lanyards for political functions, everything else. But I don't. A quilt show, that's just kind of an oddball.
I've heard that you attract the women crowd, and there's usually 3 or 4 deep around.
There's some come by to say hi. They like the show.
Are you taking your book because you're now an official bestseller?
Wow.
You could sell some books up in Red Deer.
The book's been doing well, but I don't think the boss there, Jane, would appreciate my bringing politics into her business platform.
Yeah, she's just fed up fending off all the women around you.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
All right. Well, good luck.
All right, thanks, Dave.
You bet.
You bet. I'll text later. And yes, the books don't pay for everything, and quilt shows don't sponsor the Standard. The reason we keep rolling is you guys subscribe. So as you see, Dave's got lots of stuff on the go. He's got lots of reporters he's managing, and we've got the stories as they break. The reason we can do so is you guys subscribing. It's at $10 a month, $100 for a year, just like an old newspaper subscription, guys. This is the new media. This is independent media. This is the way we can do it. This is how we stay accountable to you rather than accountable to governments for subsidies and things such as that. So if you've subscribed already, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And if you haven't yet, come on, guys, get on it. Pull out that credit card, spend a few bucks, get past that paywall, support independent media so we can keep getting more reporters on the ground and make Dave even busier there trying to cover everything. You can see him back to the desk behind me there, and he is hard at it. We got a lot on the go. So, lots of things breaking in the news out there. The independence thing is huge, and it's been keeping me busy a lot lately. It's on top of the news. But where are we going to go with it? And the parties, that's an interesting aspect. And it's funny because I'm a person who's supportive of parties and partisanship. And when my guest comes on in a few moments here, Roy Beyer with a Better Calgary Party, I think bringing parties into the municipal system, I think in the long run, though they're in their infancy right now, I think it's a good development for democracy. It's a better way to get things done on the municipal front. Yet at the same time, when we're talking about, as Dave was talking about, independence parties, this is where we get problematic, and we don't need them, and they aren't working. The best way to remind people, if you've ever actually campaigned before, go knocking on doors, running for an independence party. I did it. I did it over 20 years ago with the Alberta Independence Party. and you immediately turn into a single issue party. You see, that's one of the headaches. People don't understand. Well, geez, support for independence was 20, 25%. I mean, now it's at 36%, but even in past elections, it was up there. But these independence parties can't get past 1%. That's because you're wearing that on your sleeve and you're not getting any farther than that. People in a provincial election still want to talk about healthcare. They want to talk about education. They want to talk about those broader issues. And your focus ends up on nothing but independence when you're trying to campaign that way. Likewise, a government in power just can't afford to get themselves pigeonholed with something like that. And it's been an interesting tactic that Premier Smith's done. She's put it in the hands of the members, in the hands of the citizens. Then if a referendum is going to be held, it's on them, and she doesn't kind of have to take a side. It's an interesting balancing act she's trying to accomplish, but I think it's the better way to go. All right, but let's, I see him in the lobby there. Bring Roy Beyer in from a Better Calgary party and see what's going on in the municipal front. Hey, Roy, how you doing?
Oh, very good. Cory, I'm having connection problems.
Okay, yeah, I understand that frustration at times. We had you for just audio only for a moment. Let's try again.
Let's try again. So good to, I'm not too sure why. I usually have no problem with StreamYard, but this morning I had some glitches. So thanks for having us.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, no, I know the pain. I was on with Candace with Trudeau the other day, and same thing. My StreamYard, for some reason, decided to crap out. It just seems to be the way it goes now. So
yeah.
So yeah, where to begin? You're with the Better Calgary party. You guys were the first ones out of the gate with the new municipal party system. It's kind of you're breaking a lot of new ground, trying to get things together and get ready. And we've got municipal elections looming this fall. So how's it been going?
Well, it's been interesting because, of course, we knew early on that this was going to be a challenge because not everyone likes the idea of a municipal political party. Change is always uncomfortable for some people that are used to the old system. But for us conservatives, it hasn't been working. We've had election after election with terrible results because we on the conservative side, we tend to split the vote. That's like herding cats. So on the center conservative side, we have multiple candidates running against each other. The last election, we had, I think, 27 mayoral candidates. The other side is very organized, very disciplined. And it was Calgary's Future, which is actually funded by public sector unions. So their priorities are not the same as what is typical for most Calgarians. They selected one person in every ward and one person for a mayoral candidate. And not surprisingly, they won and we lost again. And so the idea of a political party is that we on the right have a mechanism by which we can narrow the field. Instead of many people running against each other, we could just have one and then really have an effective election where the issues are understood by people. It's not a popularity contest, who has most signs. And it's also that clear as to, what each side stands for. And I think that would result in a better election result. But the transition has not been easy because some people are uncomfortable with that. And so we got started very early talking to some of the incumbents. We knew that for them, this was going to be challenging because if they've done a good job, name recognition, they don't really need a party. But we as citizens of Calgary, we need a political party. So we were first out the gate last June with our launch, inviting all of the center-right players to join us and to work with us under the concept of a political party where we'd have nominations and narrow the field and get a single person selected for every ward.
Great. And I'm glad you brought up that the unions and others had been organizing and have been successfully doing this for years, because some people would chafe at the thought of a party system coming into municipal politics. So that what I always say is, well, the only thing worse than an official party system is an unofficial party system. And that's been going for quite some time. This is transparent and in the open, and people get to know who the candidates are about. It's not a hidden agenda by any means.
That's for sure. And, the thing that's interesting, if you actually look at the analysis of money that was spent, those center-right candidates actually spent more money, but they were split amongst many. Whereas the left, they were more efficient. Yes, they spent $1.4 million, but they put it behind one single candidate in every ward. And, it just makes sense to try to do the same thing. But I don't think it's possible unless we accept the basic premise of a political party system because we don't have the same mechanism of discipline as a union does, right? So the mechanism of discipline is saying, well, let's have a political party, let's have a nomination process. That all made sense to me. And unfortunately, not everyone agrees, but that's something that we still really believe in.
So, as you said, I mean, especially it being new, you've got some incumbent candidates, ones that are a handful that are popular conservative individuals, and people have been worried that they'd be knocked off or a vote split might hit them, and they don't want to oppose them. But as incumbents, they aren't too inclined to jump into a new party. So you guys have arranged something of a bypass vote. Can you kind of explain how that worked?
Sure. And we just went through the bypass vote, but this was a really important piece for us.
Oh, is he back?
Yeah. Sorry about
Okay.
that, Cory.
No, that's all right.
I've got nice internet and everything. No explaining what's going on here. But yeah, the bypass vote was an idea that we had because we're transitioning from a non-party system to a party system municipality-wise. And we knew that some of the incumbents did not really need a political party. They can get reelected without a political party. And so what we wanted to do is have a democratic mechanism by which to figure out which of the incumbent councillors we're not going to run against. So we knew for sure there was a list of 3 people that were likely to be well liked by center-right conservatives. But instead of guessing and having a backroom conversation, we decided we'd ask the membership within every ward. So we have 14 wards in the city. In every ward, we ask them yes or no. Do you want us to bypass? Are you happy with your incumbent or not? And if they're happy with their incumbent, if the majority vote, yes, I'm happy, then we will choose, instead of running an ABC candidate against the incumbent would choose instead to endorse or not run a candidate against that person. So we wanted that to be very transparent and very democratic. We built it within our bylaws. We just finished that vote. And so there was 5 council members that got a bypass vote from ABC Party. And we knew there was 3 solid. There was unsure about 2 others. And we left it up to the members within the ward to tell us whether or not to give them a bypass.
Great. So that works, to help things when you're looking at city council. Now, the mayoral race is another challenge altogether in a lot of ways. There's already a number of declared candidates for mayor, and a few could be conservative or not. As you said, the last election, it was just dozens of mayoral candidates. How is the Alberta Calgary Party navigating the mayoral aspect?
Well, there it's more challenging because it was the Alberta government was very late in the game to finalize the rules. To be really clear about that, they should have got the final rules much sooner, because to ask somebody to hold back and wait for a process by which we can have a nomination against like 3 or 4 good center-right conservative type mayoral candidates. We've already got people that jumped in, and I don't know if there's anything we can do to undo that, right? So the way I look at it right now is we win with 8 council members. And the other side, of course, winning the mayor would be a fantastic bonus, but it's a bit different with politics in municipal politics. You can actually win with 8 council members. And right now there's 2 or 3 reasonably good mayoral candidates. We might even have one of them jump on with ABC Party, but I don't see the ego factor being overcome in this case. I think there's going to be some good center-right mayoral candidates running against each other. The only hope that we have is that there's maybe 2 or 3 on the left that are also running against each other, but that's unfortunate. If we would have got the party system in place earlier, we could have had the system to narrow the field with the mayoral candidates in place, and it's just a little bit late in the game for us to narrow the field now.
Yeah, so it looks like you got about 5 months ahead of you, perhaps, until the municipal election hits. It sounds like a long time to some people, but it's going to go pretty fast. You really want to get on the ground, knocking doors, establishing people. So the bypass vote portion is behind you. I imagine nominations are going to be coming pretty soon for the rest.
Yeah, we had to do the bypass vote. We had 4 ward associations on standby saying we've got a candidate we want to declare. I said, just wait until the bypass vote is done. So we do have 4 candidates that will become official candidates that have gone through the vetting and nomination process. And we'll be able to make those announcements here over the next week. And then we're going to be opening up new nominations in about 4 to 6 additional wards. So there's, we don't necessarily have to have all 14. Of course, ideally, we have 13 ward associations formed, but we do have very strong candidates. And I believe we'll get to that place of having 10, 12 very strong candidates by the time election rolls around.
So what about policy and even branding for the party? I mean, you want that consistency, yet at the same time, you want to allow some flexibility among candidates to speak for their local constituents. It's a little different with municipal and interesting. So are there going to be, I guess, some broad policy statements they'll commit to or something of that sort?
Yeah, I mean, the party itself, we established ourselves on the idea of being truly democratic memberships with voting powers. We're the only party that's truly a political party where our members have a vote. And so we're distinguishing ourselves that way. But in addition, we want to make sure that we have in place a system where it's our candidates, nominated candidates, that get into the weeds of policy, right? So once we have that first group of 4 candidates selected, they'll get together and they'll start announcing a policy platform that's reflective of the party. We have common principles, that we have 10 principles that I think, are beliefs of most center-right citizens of Calgary that say, well, that's just common sense. But actual policies, we decide we let the candidates really formulate that. And that first group of candidates will be doing that over the next couple of weeks, where we'll see some actual policy announcements. I think really exciting and interesting policy announcements being made by those candidates who are nominated, who are our official candidates for ABC Party.
Great. And as a party, though, I mean, it's so there's going to be people kind of moving in the same direction and working together, but it won't be quite as rigid as I guess the party system on the federal and provincial levels. Like there's not going to be whipped votes and things like that in a council chamber. There's going to be more leeway for the individuals, I gather.
Oh, 100%. That's the big difference is municipalities, yes, the mayor has a lot of power, but it's not the same as yet the leader of a party who's, the premier or the prime minister. It's not the same at all. And so it gives more power to the actual council member. And that's actually a good thing. I mean, I wish we had that in federal and provincial politics. The empowerment of a person that represents a specific ward, I think, makes a lot of sense. So we're going to capture some of the benefit of the uniqueness of municipal politics, where the council member will have a lot of say and not be forced to vote one way or another. There'll be coalitions formed and that kind of thing. But the advantage of a political party is that most people don't pay attention until election day. And then they go and vote. And they vote based on name recognition. Most signs out there, they don't really know what the persons that are running an award, what they represent. And if we have a brand and a center conservative brand, if somebody goes and votes, they heard about the Better Calgary Party, they went to the website, they heard about the platform and the policies, and they go now into the voting booth, they may not know the name of the person that they're voting for, but they'll know the brand. And that's typical, unfortunately, for most voters. They say, I'm voting UCP or I'm voting NDP. That is going to help people to know what the various parties stand for, and you can then align yourself with that party, and it's easier for people to know what they're voting for.
Yeah, well, I'd certainly hope you guys can, get folks in who better reflect Calgary. That's always been kind of a provincial embarrassment. We're so consistently conservative on the provincial front and on the federal front, and then we elect some of these crazy hard left loons into our civic government at times. If we could just have the electorate pay a little better attention at voting time, I suspect that trend could stop.
Absolutely. And I think it just comes down to vote splitting. And it's harder to organize conservatives because, again, the unions have leverage. They use that leverage to narrow the field to one person in every ward, one mayoral candidate that put the money, massive amount of money behind that. And because we've got multiple candidates, all believing that they're the best, and I understand that, the only way to narrow the field is a nomination process. Have a race between good people and narrow it down to one behind which we all can rally. So this is transition time. This is what we're about, is helping to educate the advantage of a political party system and the advantage of one where members actually have a vote. And that's what ABC Party is all about.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that. So before I let you go, how could people find you guys to take part or ask more questions or support you?
Absolutely. Go to our website, abettercalgaryparty.ca. And there you'll be able to read about the principles of the party. Sign up. If you want to become a member, you can do that. But right now, just sign up, and you'll be on the receiving end of communications. And over the next 2 weeks, we're going to have some really exciting good news in terms of our candidates and introduce them to our members and new nominations that are opening up across the city. So we want people to hear about it and get involved. We can, again, we're the only party where membership have a voice and have a vote. So that's, I think, an important distinguishing factor.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk to us today and what you're up to. We'll be watching the municipal campaign as it unfolds with great interest. I hope we'll have you on again to talk about things perhaps after your nominations and see what's getting ramped up.
Thanks so much, Cory, for having us. I know that you guys have been in the weeds with so many big issues all across Canada, and we do have to start focusing about the local municipalities as well. It really does matter. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's we overlook the municipal far too often. It's time that changed. So I appreciate you guys bringing it to the fore, and then we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Right on. Thanks, you too. So that was Roy Beyer of A Better Calgary Party. And as he said, this is something we're sinners, guys, as conservatives, as Albertans, and it happens across the country. The closest level of government to you is the municipal government. They're the ones who have the most direct impact on most of your aspects in life. Yet often a lot of people can't even name their local councillor. And then they wonder why they get such insane policies coming down the pipe. You wonder why you aren't consulted on things like zoning changes. You wonder why the city council is dominated by wokesters who are doing virtue signaling rather than dealing with issues like crime on the streets or potholes for that matter. So I'm pretty pumped. I'm looking forward to this because this is a different approach. Let's get people participating, paying attention, looking at these issues, set the apathy aside. We've had some municipal elections, I think, historically that have gotten turnouts as low as, I believe, 20% in Calgary and things like that. Like, guys, you're paying a lot of tax for services, policing, roads, garbage, parks, and you're not getting a good return on it. And these guys get away with it because they slide under the radar. There's a couple of councillors I'll name. I mean, they weren't necessarily bad people, but they made careers out of being on city council in Calgary. One was Dale Hodges. He was there for something like 30 years. He was there from the 80s until just a few years ago. And Ray Jones was another one. He just left a few years ago. He was there for decades on Calgary City Council. And you know what? Most people never heard of either of them because those guys learned they followed the strategy of nobody moves, nobody gets hurt. They would fly under the radar. They wouldn't take controversial stances. They just kind of put in their day's work and stay in the background. They weren't active on social media. They were just there for decades. And because they're incumbents, they're almost impossible to dislodge because nobody was paying attention. And they just were like mushrooms sitting in there. Dale Hodges used to be notorious for what he would do during council meetings. If something controversial came up that he'd have to vote on and everything, he would suddenly get a stomach issue and excuse himself from the council chambers until the vote had passed. And then he would find his way back. So that way he wouldn't have to vote on either side of it. And he wouldn't end up in the papers. And he could keep remaining as an invisible council member and sitting in there. That's not doing anybody any favors. And again, they weren't necessarily bad people, but they were mediocre. And they would never take on anything of significance, and it's got to stop. Let's see here. Just looking at some of the comments from Ruckin. Yes, Cory, do you think that common sense changes need to come from our independent government? A clear set of rules that fit. None of this extra fluff. Bylaws. Keep it simple. That's an issue, particularly with municipal governments, and every government getting outside of their mandate. I mean, it's the busybody nature of authoritarians, of politicians in general. They want to get in on everything. I mean, people don't go into politics to not control things, right? So municipally is bad. Yes, fluff bylaws. I mean, I remember dominance for weeks. The conversation in Calgary Council being dominated over banning shark fin soup in Chinatown. Like, really? That's a city of 1.5 million people, and that's the biggest thing you clowns are going to talk about for a couple of weeks? And I mean, I understand there's some terrible fishing practices and wasteful and cruel with shark finning and things like that, but at what point is that the role of a city government to micromanage the menu of a restaurant? That's how bad it is. Other things, I mean, they harm businesses on so many levels. If you want free enterprise, you want things going on in your area. It's not just Calgary, any municipality. As Alberta Nan's saying, the bylaws in Fort McMurray are ridiculous. Yes, they are. And they choke businesses terribly. Me with the MD of Foothills, when I and that's a rural one, when I owned my pub and coffee shop, some of the hoops we had to jump through and the garbage for a simple pub and coffee shop. And they cost us as business owners thousands of dollars a year in a small business to be compliant. It costs, millions when you get into the big business. And usually it's just a matter of satisfying bureaucrats, not actually having any bylaws that have any impact on protecting or not protecting people in general. They're self-feeding, loathsome, pointy-headed monsters. Bureaucrats are on every level of government. I mean, I'm not a fan of President Trump. That, it's one of the things I have said, though, that I've kind of liked, even though he's kind of done it with a chainsaw in that sense. With the Doge idea with Elon Musk getting in and cutting into the bureaucracy, because that's the problem with governments all over the place on every level. You've got all these people who just they're parasitic. They exist for the sake of making regulations to keep themselves working, to draw a large salary. I mean, again, getting to Calgary, for example, somebody gave me that job ad that came up for it. It showed in Calgary almost $200,000 a year for a person to be essentially a diversity, equity, and inclusion manager. So somebody to bring in race-based hiring and enforce that within the city. Almost $200,000 a year, and it showed on the job ad saying you will have the standard 35 hours per week. Well, wait a minute. In the real world, standard is 40 hours a week. And then it also said you'll get every, I believe it was every third Friday off altogether. Plus, you get a few weeks of vacation. This is just a complete waste of time, a complete waste of money. You don't need that position whatsoever. And you look at Calgary City Hall, the giant, as Rick Bell likes to say in his columns, the big blue playpen. It's a giant blue building full of offices and bureaucrats that all they bloody well do is hinder development, hinder businesses, get in your face, while at the same time you walk in the alleys of downtown Calgary and all you can smell is urine from the homeless people. You can't ride the train because of the disorder on there. Body shops and tire shops are doing great trade because people are knocking their tires off their rims on the potholes. But city council is navel gazing and doing things like they did in Calgary on banning paper bags. Yes, not even plastic wasn't good enough. They banned paper bags. They actually had to back off on that one, those fools. But whose fault is it? See, there's where part of the problem with a lot of citizens don't like to talk about that, but that's the truth of it. Guys, in a democracy, and I know ours is imperfect, but it is a democracy. We have the means, we have the ability. It's on us. We have to participate. We have to get off our butts. We have to pay attention to who's running, what they're standing for, and then we've actually got to get out there and vote or run or support. A commenter, Jay Smoke, focus on my title. The countdown has begun for an Alberta referendum. Yeah. Well, the nature of my show, that's where I start the show off and talk on things. And I'll talk on these things as we go throughout. But my show covers a number of issues. I'm going to talk to Nadine Ness pretty soon, and that'll be kind of back on that subject, but from a Saskatchewan perspective. But all of these things tie together, actually. They really do. I'm talking about participation in municipal politics because it's important, and it will empower you, and it will strengthen you. And that translates as well to provincial and federal, and a referendum. That means people have to get off their asses. This is going to be interesting. The parties won't be a part of that. This will be a democratic exercise of individuals. there's different groups are going to campaign in this. But theoretically, in 2026, there's going to be a yes or no vote. I'm sure there's going to be a bit of squabbling over what the phrasing of that vote will be, but it'll be whether or not to stay within the Federation. And again, as I said, this is history making. No Western province has ever done this. No province aside from Quebec has ever done this. The polling right now is interesting, to say the least. Exciting. 36% in Alberta, and you're getting over 30%, it looks like, in Saskatchewan, looking at that. But remember, guys, that's still getting into the 15 to 20%, too short to win a referendum. So if it's going to happen, there's still a heck of a lot more groundwork to be done to reach the winning conditions of it. And with it being a year away, it's looking most likely. Well, again, that's a lot of time, and it's very little time at the, both at the same time, right? Because it's going to pass fast, but you also got to keep things going while as they say, strike while the iron's hot. I like that it's been cooled down a bit. Commenter saying, I reckon, organize Jeffrey Rath and Keith Wilson to come on. I had Keith Wilson on my show. If you want to look back on the past shows, he was on Wednesday, and we had a very good discussion. People talking about getting groups together to pursue independence and head towards a referendum. We don't need to get them together. You can join a bunch of them if you want. You see, there's where you get out of the party thing, though. See, parties by nature are competitive with each other, even if they're both. And in Alberta, we got 5 independence parties. Well, they're all competing with each other when really the only goal is the independence, is the referendum. So don't worry about the parties. They don't matter. We got to focus on the referendum, and that's just one person, one vote, one way or left or right, yes or no. And if you start sidetracking down these little fiefdoms people are trying to create with their own little personal political parties, you're just wasting your time, your effort, your shoe leather. I mean, there's good people involved in them, sure, and very well-meaning people involved in them. But you remember, you've only got so much capital to invest as a citizen in this upcoming referendum. And I mean mental capital, I mean physical with your money, just in general. So if you're splitting it by messing around with a bunch of your time playing with these political parties that can't combine to make 1% of the vote, you could have been dedicating that time to building the base for a winning condition in a referendum. So prioritize your energy. I mean, don't join this Alberta Republican Party. Really? I mean, it was already a name that's divisive among people who want independence. Why? Jay Smoke saying, disagree, they're confusing people and it will fail. Well, I don't know. If we just ignore them or sidetrack them or point them out like the Republicans are a bunch of knobs, people won't waste their time on them. And there's a few good people involved with the Republican Party too, I'm sure. But we just got to dismiss them. There are groups, and it's going to have to be by groups, not parties. And that's where Premier Smith has been kind of smart about it. She said it's in the hands of the people. It's up to them in a referendum. I'm kind of out of it. I'm dealing with our governing Alberta and dealing with Ottawa with what I can. And that's up to the people if they want to have a referendum on that, and they will vote which way they please. And that's the way it's got to be. Likewise, and it segues well into bringing Nadine on to talk about what's going on in Saskatchewan, because it's very similar. We're seeing the football being played politically, and it's funny with the opponents of independence, the first thing they want to do is take away our ability to even have a vote on it. And that's kind of what your discussion is over there, isn't it, Nadine?
It is. And it was interesting listening to you, because I just want to make a point to the point you were making about the political parties and the groups and stuff. One of the things I think that will make our organization more successful, we're nonpartisan. We will work with whichever party we need to work with to influence this change. And in fact, last night, I may have just triggered the NDP, because Carla Beck was basically saying the reason Scott Moe and Danielle Smith are entertaining this referendum thing, or saying they have a voice, is because they're afraid of losing their seats. And I gave a warning to Carla Beck. I said, we can come after your job too. I said, you had 200 people at your convention last leadership review. We could easily bring 400 people there. So it's just kind of funny. Like, I'm willing to work. Like, imagine if every single party had a leader that was willing to defend our provinces, whether it's Alberta or Saskatchewan, that was willing to go toe to toe with Ottawa and defend our province. But that's the thing we're seeing. We don't have that with the NDP because they want the same agenda the Liberals are pushing. I mean, NDP, it's both federal, provincial. It's the same thing. But yeah, we've triggered the NDP. They're trying to pass a bill or get a bill passed to stop us from being able to do a referendum. And they're trying to stop the government from being able to call one. But I'm not someone that believes in can't. So if I have to bring 400 people to the NDP convention, let's do it. So,
Well,
yeah.
and I mean, the bottom line is they're opposing the mechanism, not even the concept. They're saying we don't trust the citizens of Saskatchewan to vote in a referendum. We don't want to give them the vote because we don't trust that they will vote the way we want them to. It's as anti-democratic as you can imagine.
I'm actually shocked at the level that they're going, but I think it has something to do with the NDP's been so much in their echo chamber. They don't think that people in the real world think outside of them. They think that they're the only ones and they're the only right ones. And I don't think they realize that what they're doing right now is actually a big misstep. I think it's going to have a really negative effect in the NDP party. I'm even seeing people commenting, just let them have a voice, let them have a vote. And these are people who are supportive of NDP. I mean, you won't have like the far left, but you will have these reasonable NDP voters if they're. And I do think there's such a thing. I do think a lot of people kind of in the middle that ended up going that way, maybe because of healthcare or education or one of those things. But I think for the most part, when they're seeing this and this of taking the voice away, I think it's going to backfire. And when people get told that, when the government tells people they can't do something like that, I think it activates something in them to want to get more involved. And we've seen that, like as soon as they started talking about that, what happened? Our petition signatures started going way up.
Yeah, well, something that's been interesting in the polling that came out from Angus Reid recently that I was referencing, where we're looking at getting into the 30-some% support for independence, was a question they asked, and I'm glad they did, whether people support a referendum even being held on independence. And that came in at 50%. So there are more people supporting having the referendum than people committing themselves already to a yes vote. But that tells me that some of the people opposing independence still want to have it. They're saying, let's get it on the table. Let's have our vote then and get it done. There's people who can oppose independence but still respect democracy. Hold it and let's see.
It is exactly that. It's a direct attack on democracy. And I made a tweet about this. I said, does the new Democratic Party know that what democracy means? They have it directly in their name, but their behavior has been the complete opposite. And I think that this is going to backfire huge. And even when we put out that warning to them, that we're strongly condemning this, they just double down and go even further ahead. So we're like, okay, what do we do next? I don't think it's going to pass. If anything, this is actually making the Sask party look like the reasonable, calm-headed, democracy supporting party. And it's making the NDP look authoritarian. Basically, yeah, like they know best what's best for the people, that they can't even trust the people to make their own decisions. So again, this is not shocking coming from the NDP. They haven't really been the party of reason. So, but yeah, we'll see how it plays out in the future. I don't know when they're planning on voting on this. So we'll see what will happen.
So what kind of legislation is in place currently in Saskatchewan for referenda? Is it achievable, or is it something kind of ridiculous like Alberta's, which is changing, or is there any at all?
We do. Okay. So I got to clarify. It's not the same as Alberta. We don't have a citizen-led petition option for a referendum. We do have something that citizens can do. It's called a plebiscite. So basically We gather 15% of the voters' signature, which would be around 122,000. And once we have that, a vote gets put to the public. However, it's non-binding. So the government doesn't need to do anything about it, even if people vote for more. A referendum is, but the referendum can only be initiated by the government, not the public. So when we're doing our efforts, like if you go to our website, unifiedgrassroots.com, and you click register for a petition, that's not the actual petition for the plebiscite. That's going to be coming on later on once we've done all the town halls, gathered all the information. What do the people actually want? And so we're going to be doing that over the next 2-3 months. And then eventually we'll have the plebiscite petition posted. We'll reach out to all the people who registered to get signatures. We'll do signature drives with thousands of volunteers. But the other option that we press for more of is get more involved in the political parties in your province. So, and we don't say which one. In some areas, it might be NDP. If your MLA is an NDP, you could potentially get involved. So we say, buy a party membership. We don't say which one. Again, we're nonpartisan. Show up at the AGM of each constituency. Boards has an AGM once a year. Show up there. If you show up at most AGM board election, like a constituency association board election, get elected by 10 people. Usually it's the MLAs bring their friends and family. So you might need 15 people show up, and then you have the boards. And ultimately, they're the ones who determine what policy gets sent to convention. And I know this is dry, but it's so important people understand the democratic rights that they have in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Alberta is very similar. And then at convention, you show up with 400 or 500 people. Like the convention for the SAS party had, I think, 680 people. The convention for the NDP, I'm told, was between 200 and 300. It might not even have been 200. I was told they put round tables to make it look so full. Imagine if we showed up with 400 people there, we get voted in, the policies, priority. The same thing can be done in the nomination election. Like when you have a candidate show up on the ballot, really, if we organize the masses, the 125,000 people, NDP party only has like 6,700 members. So like really, when you think about it, SAS party is a bit more. It's 27,000. So, but really, there's so much better ways to be more effective than just signing a petition. But people need to be willing to get off the couch and show up at that one meeting. That's when the board is getting elected at the constituency association level. It's one meeting a year. The convention, it's once, I think, every 2 years. So we're going to take a whole maybe approach, multi-level approach as an organization. And then you have other groups as well that are doing their own thing that probably will help when we do have the plebiscite petition to get signatures. So, and I don't want to say that one avenue is better than the other either, because I think all of them combined becomes really effective for change. And we've already seen change. Like if you watch the legislature, I think it was a few days ago, our organization and my name personally was brought up multiple times by the NDP and SAS party saying, no, we're not going to silence the voice of the people. We're already influencing government to the point they're so afraid they're trying to pass legislation to stop us. So even that, it's making its way to Ottawa. Mark Carney knows that there's momentum building, that the people are organizing. The NDP party, I'm sure they're afraid now after I warned Carla Beck yesterday, we can come for your job too. Like we have the numbers. Do you think you can actually bring several thousands of people to show up at your convention? Maybe, maybe not. But even that is influencing change in its own. And I see this as way more Canadians kind of waking up and getting motivated to get involved in our democratic processes. And that in itself will also have positive effect. If you have way more people who show up for nomination races, for board election, for conventions, it's less likely for foreign interference to be as effective as it has been, because they know not many people show up. So we're just trying to activate the Saskatchewan residents to say, hey, if you want to protect your province, if you want to protect your way of life, these are the different avenues that you can go to do that. So, and I think that's why the NDP is afraid of me. And I know all of this because I used to be a lefty. So I'm just they're really good at this. They've been doing this with the unions, with the nonprofit organization, and the right never really had a whole lot up until the last few years, and now boom, it's just growing, and we're learning these different ways of getting involved. So
So your group is United Grassroots. I mean, it's been around for a while, though. I mean, you
Mhm.
guys are pursuing more than just independence votes. Like you've got other
Yeah.
aspects, policy wise or agenda wise on your group's plate. What else are you guys promoting?
So we were behind pushing the well. Is it okay if I bring it up? I guess. Do you have our website? We have a list of things that we kind of had to define ourselves for what we're going to fight for. So I'll list them quickly. So
Sure.
holding government accountable, liberty and personal freedom. So you and I may have been on a different page when it came to what happened during COVID, but that's when we were born out of. We weren't deniers of COVID or anything. We were just not okay with the government telling people what to do. We're for informed consent and patient focused healthcare, for funding students, not system. So the parental rights kind of goes into that. We want the focus to be the students, not the systems around them. So and we that goes along with school choice, and the money follows the child. We want low and fair taxes. We want unleashing Canadian energy and resources, preserving Canadian culture through sustainable immigration. So we're not necessarily anti-immigration. We want it to be sustainable, and that's not what we've seen in the last few years, and that's not what Mark Carney just announced, the 5%. That's no different than what we've seen in the last few years. And the biggest one that we're focusing right now is protecting Saskatchewan's sovereignty. So, but if you look at the work we've done, we've held Building Leaders Conference to try to bring industry experts to help activists with their messaging. We also help people run campaigns. So for example, there was 30 school board trustee campaigns in the province that we assisted. So when I say assisted, it's not financially. We just sent a bunch of volunteers their way. We have 80,000 members and followers. So when we kind of do this stuff, if they tell us they want to volunteer, we say, okay, what do you want to do? And then we send them in the right direction to kind of support our mission. So, and we had 25 of those school board trustees get elected. So it was super successful. And we told people to get involved in nomination race. We encourage people to run. Some people run that was a part of our group or followed our group that I didn't even know about them, but they were just encouraged by everything that's been going on and ran and won. So, but you're seeing a lot of that right now being played out in the media. They're trying to attack some SAS party members because they were a part of our organization on the Facebook group. But when you think about it, we are like more conservative leaning. I would call ourselves a conservative grassroots organization. Most of our mission fall in line with the conservative movement, but it's really just organizing and activating the masses and get them more involved in politics. And I'm new to politics. I like I said, I voted Liberal. I voted for Trudeau his first go around. I was so naive. I was so like one of those like NPC voters where you just believe everything the media tells you. And I didn't pay very much attention. And I think now realizing government policies really does affect your personal lives. I don't know if it did as much 20, 30 years ago, but we saw that in the last few years that everything is kind of encroaching into your home and into your family and your way of life. And I don't think we're going to be able to go in the right direction unless people activate and on a massive level. And that's what we teach people to do.
Well, I really appreciate it. I mean, getting citizen engagement, it's a lot of work, but it's so very important. And I'm glad to see a group like yours and yourself working on it in Saskatchewan to keep those things rolling. So just kind of remind everybody, that's at United Grassroots, unitedgrassroots.com.
Unified Grassroots.
Unified, my apologize.
That's okay.
John's got it right on the screen, so that's why you're there to correct me. Unified Grassroots, thank you. And where else can people find you and what you're up to before I let you go?
Yeah, if they want to follow me, I'm very active on X. So if you search Nadine G. Ness on all platform, I also do a YouTube show. It was daily, but because I'm so busy with this, we had to move it to twice a week. So you can listen there. We're going to be talking a lot about independence, getting some guests in. And but yeah, the website, if you're from Saskatchewan and you want to sign up, go to the website. It says petition registration, or you can just sign up regular. And I want to say something, Cory, too, that people may not know. Because you can join our website without doing the whole petition, if you look at the signatures of the website, I think I'm just going to go back and see how many it says. It's not an accurate description as to how many people have joined the movement, because some people have just signed up on our website. We've had several thousands sign up on our website, and I think our petition is at 3,363. But if you add all of them, we're probably over 6,000 right now. So it's a little bit misleading to have those signatures there, because there's way more that are just kind of signing through the join button.
Great. Well, thank you very much again for joining today. We'll be watching Saskatchewan with interest and see if things are moving parallel to Alberta.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Cory.
Great. Thanks. So that was Nadine Ness of Unified Grassroots. I'll get it right at the end here anyways. And, if you're in Saskatchewan, you're interested, you want to get on board, check them out. Take part. I mean, that's been kind of the theme for the show today, with Roy to begin with and Nadine later, and in general. It's up to us. You got to get off your butts. You got to get active. You got to take part. The term's participatory democracy. It only works if you participate. And, a lot of the discussion I'm seeing through the comments section there, I see one commenter pointing out, Facebook, Facebook, just to clarify some things, actually kicked all the media groups off of there. So we pretty much have no basis there anymore. We still broadcast to it. So it is a small amount. Mr. Hutton, if you do want to, have more discussion with the people in the comments, so you should probably get on YouTube where most of the folks are. And a lot of those comments have really been appreciated. It's been good discussion to watch that going on here. When we're again, it's definitely the independence issue has been top of mind in Saskatchewan. Out here, we got a lot of work to do if you really want it to get somewhere. I mean, I don't know if that 36% can turn into over 50% in a referendum. That's a year away. That's a big chunk to make. I mean, this is a serious big issue. But I tell you what, if next year it came in at 40% in an actual referendum on the ground, that's pretty serious business. This is 40% of a province saying we've had it with the Federation and we want out. And hopefully, though I doubt it, but hopefully, the powers that be will be paying attention and realize that this country is going to be ripped to pieces if they don't make real changes. Here's part of the challenge. One of the things people got to realize, it's the system, not the party. Everybody's furious right now because we've had 10 years of god-awful liberal government. And then because, in reward for that terrible, terrible government, Central Canada went and gave them a larger mandate, which is annoying. It's frustrating. It's maddening. It's because the culture in Central Canada is different than the culture in the West, contrary to what Blanchet said in Quebec. And because of our system not allowing representation for the different regions, it forces us to be at each other's throats. If you had more independence, sovereignty within the provinces as it was supposed to be in a federation anyways, we wouldn't be as upset and divided as we are. But unfortunately, we're stuffed under a giant federal government that gets into every aspect of our lives, from school lunches for children to terrible federal laws to, of course, the equalization. And as Lynn, a commenter, pointing out, we don't have equal voter or Senate representation. Yeah, we're underrepresented in the House of Commons when you look at members per capita, particularly when it's compared to the Maritimes. And in the Senate, yeah, we get totally ripped off in the Senate. So what are we supposed to do? But we got to remember, guys, if you're just going to get mad when your party of choice doesn't come in, that's not real support for independence. That's just partisan annoyance. What you've got to think harder on is, how well have conservative governments served the West traditionally? And then you realize, that's when you start to realize it's the system. Not that the conservative members are bad, not that the conservative leaders have been that bad, but they're forced by our system to pander to Central Canada. One of the biggest ones I saw was with the Polyev when they were in opposition. The population numbers and balances in Canada, Quebec had come to a point where they're actually, if we were going to follow the rep by pop in the House of Commons, Quebec should have lost a seat. Instead, they raised unholy hell and said, we got to guarantee the amount of seats for Quebec. I believe it's 75 or something, no matter what their population is. So completely contrary to representation by population. And they put a motion forward in the House of Commons. Let's keep Quebec happy. Let's keep Quebec happy. Let's make sure we guarantee their seats. So if there's only 100 Quebecers left in that whole province, 75 of them will be members of Parliament. And many members of the Conservative Party voted yes on that too. So are they doing us favors, guys? We got screwed. Poilievre he didn't go to the vote. And I like Poilievre in a lot of things, but it showed the nature of our federal system. If you don't kiss Quebec's ass, you don't win federal elections. Thus, the West will always get the short end of the stick. Lynn said Harper tried. No, he didn't. The equalization formula was under Harper's government, and it was no better than any other equalization formula was. I mean, Harper drafted the Alberta agenda, and I'm not saying Harper's a bad guy. He was a good prime minister, far better than what we had with Trudeau. But he didn't change anything with the system. Couldn't. That's part of it. He would try if he could have, but he's smart man. You can't change it because it's the system. Another beauty, we're going to go back into some political history with Alberta, was the height of independence movements back in the 80s when Pierre Trudeau brought in the National Energy Program and just ravaged Western Canada. You know, the people were walking away from their houses because we had double-digit interest rates. The economy cratered because of the federal government attacking our energy sector. And then Mulroney got elected. Now, one of the aspects of the National Energy Program was kind of ironic. Basically, it was going to force Alberta to sell oil and gas at a discount to the rest of the country, while there was a tariff on it going to other country, if we're exporting. But part of what was in that program was actually, if oil prices drop low enough, the rest of the country was supposed to pay an inflated price to keep our industry stabilized. You see, it was supposed to be fair and go both ways. Well, Mulroney got elected, and he kept the National Energy Program in place for well over a year past his time in office. He didn't quite rush to get rid of it until the oil prices collapsed. And then suddenly Canada would have to pay in on the National Energy Program. Then Mulroney said, we'll get rid of that now. Yeah, guys, we got just as screwed by the Conservatives as we did the Liberals. A lot of people forget that. Later on as well, we saw with the, people might remember, not everyone was as gray as me in the audience. I understand that. But there was the contract for I think it was CF-18s, or one of the, I'm pretty sure it was the CF-18 contract. But I mean, for aircraft military manufacturing, Winnipeg had a far, far better bid for this contract. Absolutely way out of the park better than anybody else. It just made total sense on every level. You should give this contract to Winnipeg. Mulroney gave it to Quebec. Because you always pander to Quebec. That's the nature of Canada. Poilievre panders to Quebec. Harper pandered to Quebec. It's the system, not the party. So how do we get out of the system? Again, there were attempts kind of to change the system. Meech Lake, Charlottetown, did those even come close to passing? No. And they won't. We can't. See, there's the beautiful thing with constitutional amendments is you do need 7 out of 10 provinces and a whole bunch of things to get anything done. They're always going to vote their parasites to keep draining the rest of the province. Sorry, CB fixes all. A commenter said, address the question I posted. I didn't see it, whatever it might be then. I'll scroll back in the comments. Here we go. Does Alberta need 51% of the eligible voters, or do we need 51% of the voters who voted in the last election? It makes a difference in the votes needed. Okay, so are you talking about to invoke the referendum? I'll work all the way through this. To invoke the referendum, it used to be 20% of those eligible to vote in the last election, which just made it a huge number. It was like 600,000 people, and it had to be gotten within 3 months. Premier Smith's Bill 54 is going to change it, so you need 10% of those who voted, and you get 4 months to do it. So it's like 177,000, and within the 4 months, and then you can invoke the referendum. So the commenter CB Fixes All says to pass the referendum. From most interpretations, I see it's 51% of the people who vote. You cannot bring into account the people who chose to sit on their asses. I don't care what they think. I could not care less what they think if they're too lazy to vote. We can't reverse engineer policy, particularly on a referendum, trying to guess how the people who sat at home might have voted. So I know what you're saying. I know some people could say if there was only 55% support in a referendum, but they say there was only an 80% turnout, the other 20% would have voted to say. You can't say that. We don't know what the other 20% would do. So the measure of the referendum success is based just on those who voted, not those eligible. And you're saying the feds might fight that. Well, let them. Look, they're going to fight it no matter what we do. No matter what we do. And they're going to try and make every excuse and twist and turn. If you've ever had the mispleasure of having a wood tick stuck to you, I worked as a surveyor for 20 years, and they're god awful things, you know. And you get back to my hotel room at night, and I take off a shirt. And, oh God, they're on me. And they would see you as soon as you reach in, you can see it cling in harder before you can remove the tick. Well, that's what the Canadian parasite provinces and leaders are going to do as Western provinces get closer to coming out. There are things even within the Clarity Act that talks about, like, people are trying to muddy the waters. They're trying to throw things in and talk about all the ways it can't happen. They said that First Nations have a veto. That's a load of baloney. They do not. They cannot stop this. They said that it's like a constitutional amendment. 7 out of 10 provinces have to agree to let a province out. That's a load of crap as well. After a successful vote, the country will have to change its constitution, and they'll need that formula to change their constitution, but that doesn't change the fact that the majority of the province just voted to leave on a clear question as per the Clarity Act, which means the country must, as per the Clarity Act, negotiate in good faith the independence of that province. Now, if the country doesn't negotiate in good faith with things as you're talking about, saying they refuse to accept the results, or they start, dragging their feet or put ridiculous demands, paragraph 155 of the Clarity Act, if you want to look it up, talks kind of about that. What that probably would lead to is a province finally saying, well, you know what, we're just going to unilaterally declare then. You're not negotiating in good faith. We're just out. And the bottom line is you tell Canada, what are you going to do about it? And what are they going to do about it? So it's not, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be complications. There's going to be questions. And that's why we got to work hard on this for a year. But all the people saying it can't be done, no, they're full of crap. Might not happen, but it can happen. So can you bring that to Keith and Jeffrey for clarity on the question? I mean, we will all be addressing those things over time. And Keith was on my show on last Wednesday. It's still on the list on online there. But there's going to be a lot of questions to answer in the next year as we move towards it. We just got to stay rational about it, stay focused, keep our eyes on that. I'm going to finish out before I take off just with one of the things to show just how broken Canada is, how sick we've allowed our system to get. And it's our own apathy to a degree. The foreign the foreign interference issue with going on for years. They got kicked down the road and just constantly had no resolution. People got to understand just how scary some of this is. The Chinese Communist Party. So the conservative candidate, Joe Tay, who ran, we had a candidate, a liberal candidate running against him who clearly had ties to the Chinese Communist Party. We even joked about, having him taken to the Chinese police. It's crazy. Well, now Joe Tay, the conservative candidate, had his family targeted and questioned overseas in Hong Kong. See, this is the way they work. They're intimidating the families of Canadian citizens to get their political ends met here. This is scary stuff. Why is this not a bigger headline? This is the crap that the Liberals have allowed to fester within our country. Foreign operators from different countries intimidating our citizens and their families overseas. And this is swept under the bloody rug because the Liberal Party is tied at the hip to the Chinese Communist Party. They always have been. If you want to see a funny video, Google one. You'll find that was put out by actually activists in Taiwan shortly after Trudeau got elected as prime minister, because they knew that Trudeau was tight with the Communist Party. And it's a cartoonish sort of thing. And it showed Trudeau dancing around with Chinese money being thrown at him. One of the parts is even hilarious. Trudeau's acting like a little stripper laying on the ground while a panda bear in Chinese Communist Party outfit teabags him. It is quite hilarious, but it also makes a valid point. The people of Taiwan knew how compromised the Liberals are with the Chinese Communist Party. maybe Canadians should understand it too. One final thing to leave off. Alog74 saying, Cory, how many years would it take to do this? If we're talking about independence, I don't know. It might be 1 year, it might be 10, it might be 50, it might be forever. But we're the closest to it we've ever been in Canadian history right now. It's very interesting, and we're going to see where it goes it depends on what we do, depends on what the federal government does in the next year. But stay active, stay up to date, guys. Keep following this, like, share, all that good stuff. Be sure to take out a subscription with the Western Standard if you haven't already. And you all have a really good weekend, guys. The nice weather's here. It's time. I appreciate you tuning in today and all the comments. And I will see you on my next show on Wednesday. Thanks.